Hi, I'm Savannah Payne.
Hi, I'm Sierra Varial.
Today we are presenting the information that we learned in Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 with goal analysis and also sub skills and entry-level skills.
All right, and I'm going to go first. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. All right, so my goal for my goal analysis is the instructional goal is for the students to use gamification to improve understanding and enhance learning by using a non-traditional approach or gamification. My instructional design is my goal is to use this to make learning as accessible and fun to all learners. So my first step, students will learn or relearn a subject that they may be struggling with using a different approach to learning, such as gamification. This is something we use in my classroom, and I'll talk about that further on in my flowchart. After a lesson, students can use educational games to help reinforce their learning. Gamification can be used to reteach a subject that students may be struggling with or need more clear instructions with. So it allows students to take charge of their learning. It allows them to be competitive with one another in a friendly environment where they can learn. It can also be used in a variety of subjects and grade levels, so it's accessible to everyone. We can also use it in any field, not just education. We can use it like in work. It is a great motivational tool. As humans, we are very competitive, and this allows us to build on that. Let me scroll down. It says students will use this to improve understanding and enhance learning. Students will feel motivated and want to compete against classmates. This build friendly competition. It can be used at any age, like I mentioned before, and comprehension level. So if you're struggling a little bit, you can use this as a tool to help those that may be struggling. Teachers can also use this in their classroom to check for understanding and find out the needs of individual students. So while students are maybe working on the games, teachers can go around and kind of pull small group and see which students may still be struggling. The questions I have is only relevant to education. Like I mentioned before, it can be used in any field, any topic. Does game-based learning facilitate learning? So I'm going to go into that in my next slide. So I use gamification in my 6th and 7th grade math class. We do have a 2-hour block. So the first hour is like direct teach. The second hour is where we utilize our gamification instruction. So it allows students to process what they have learned. I've noticed that my students get really competitive with one another. They want to compete in a friendly way, and it helps enhance their learning because they are competing with their classmates. It says students will be excited to learn by playing games. A lot of people walk in my room and be like, why are they on games? These games are utilized as a tool to help them. It allows learners to take charge and improve their understanding on many subjects. And like I mentioned before, it can be applied to a variety of subjects and grade levels. Students want to compete against one another in a fun, interactive game. We use programs in my classroom such as Zern, Prodigy, and Bottle. On the next slide, I do mention 10 of the most searched educational applications that can be used. So I'm going to go down here. So right here are the top 10 applications for education. We do utilize some of these in my classroom, such as Kahoot, Quizlet, Dragonbox, CodeSpark, BrainPop, and Prodigy. On the next slide here, you will be seeing some of my students utilizing Prodigy and Zern. So if you look here, these are my students competing against one another to redefine their learning. So that's why I think gamification is so important in education. We can utilize it as a tool to help students that may be struggling. Let me go back. I don't know if I'm still sharing my screen. Am I? Okay. Okay, I think I'm back.
Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and share my learning for the week. I have thought about my learning just a little bit differently. This is the first time I've ever done a goal analysis. And so whenever I did my goal analysis, I set my main goal that teachers will create student-centered learning. That's ultimately what we're doing. But as I went through Chapter 3, conducting a goal analysis, I found it very interesting that there were different options for the steps. As we saw in Sierra's, she had used an A on the right-hand side, and then on her second row continued with the A. So the thing that I learned going through chapter 3 is whenever you're thinking about your steps, step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, step number 4, it helped me. And I continue to go ahead and label mine by the numbers. And then the information that I learned from chapter 4 was, again, it talked about subordinate and entry skills. So a subordinate skill, for instance, whenever you unpack the TEKS, you're going to have to know or describe how the students are going to know the standard, how they're going to show the standard, and most importantly, this is actually one of the biggest parts because we are trying to vertically align lessons all the way from kindergarten through 8th grade, to be able to create lessons for these garden boxes and real life learning. So, an entry skill, though, is something that you're going to have to be able to do. So that's where you're going to see an entry skill here, where to activate the background knowledge, well, an entry skill would be that you're going to think about how you're going to implement it, and then what kind of activity it's going to be. So are you going to do centers? Are you going to do small group? Are you going to do movement and discourse? Are you going to have the kids measure with rulers, like the specifics of it? And so those details aren't truly listed there. As I got through the chapter 4, the technical correct way that this should be listed, let me see if I can zoom out for a second. The way that this truly should be listed is this should go left to right, just like the dark red boxes is the first set of skills they're going to need. So technically this should be over here, and these should go horizontally like this. And then the next subset of skills should be under it. So the most correct example I have here would be this 8.3, how that goes down and horizontally. So I am going to have to go back and fix my first goal analysis to make sure that those boxes get corrected. So that was my learning for this week.